Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Diamond, your favorite social media manager, giving business owners tips on how to build their brand using influencer marketing. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you my top 5 tips on finding the best influencers for your brand. Now, before we dive into this video, I do want to say that this is actually part 2 in the process of finding the right influencers for your brand. The first part just involves you actually finding and sourcing the influencers, making a list of influencers that you may potentially want to work with. And I do have a video on how to find the influencers and attract them to your brand. So if you want to check that out, I'll leave it in the cards above or in the description box below. But for this video is all about taking that list and looking at each individual influencer and kind of vetting them. This is the part where we're doing some research and deep diving into their brand to make sure that they're not only aligned with your brand, but they'll make a good fit for the campaign that you're choosing to do. And this by far is the most crucial step of this process, because if you end up choosing an influencer who isn't the best choice, then you're automatically starting the campaign off on like rocky ground, which will lead to you not getting the results that you want in the end. So if you start right and you start with the best influencer for your brand, then you're more likely going to get the results that you want in the end. So the first tip, or you can even look at these as like key insights that you want to make sure each influencer hits as you're going through and vetting them. The first thing you want to look at is their audience interactions. Now, audience interactions really just helps you filter out which influencers are truly building relationships with their audience and which influencers are not. So what we're going to be looking at is how the influencer is responding to their audience and really analyzing if they're truly continuing to nurture their audience or not. So what you're going to do is you're going to choose the platform that you're eventually going to use for the influencer campaign. So if you're thinking about running the campaign on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whichever one, you're going to pick that platform, go to the influencer's profile, and then you're going to pick several different posts and go to their comment section. And yes, at first you may feel a little creepy or weird like combing through their comments, but it's all in the name of making sure that they're actually going to be a good fit for your brand. So don't worry about it. They won't even know that you're doing it. So some things you want to look for, you want to see if they actually reply back to their comments or if they're leaving their audience hanging. And then you want to take it a step further. Not only are they commenting back, but how are they commenting back? What are they saying? Are they just leaving like a heart emoji or like the kissy face? Or are they actually like answering the questions in their comment section? Are they actually replying back with some genuine conversation? And I will tell you, it's little things like how they choose to respond to their audience that really sets influencers apart, especially when you're thinking about using them to promote your brand or product. Another thing that you want to look for is their audience asking them questions? Because you want to pick an influencer whose audience is always asking them for advice or recommendations, always asking for their opinion about something, especially on their organic posts. Because if they are, then it's more likely when you choose this influencer to promote your product or your brand, then their audience is going to repeat the same behavior. They're going to ask questions about your brand. They're going to want to hear the influencer's opinion about your brand and your product. So you want to make sure that the audience is already doing that without it being a paid campaign. All in all, audience interaction is really important because you're making sure that you're partnering with an influencer who's genuine and who's trusted by their audience. The next thing that we're going to look at is audience demographic. So this just means that you want to pick an influencer who has a similar audience to yours. So it's kind of like a lookalike audience. And the reason why you want their audience to be similar to yours is because they're more likely to relate to your product, relate to your brand, just like how your audience is. They're more likely to do that if they're relatable. So some similarities that you want to look for is, of course, things like sex, location, age, anything that falls along categorizing your audience. And so there are several ways that you can look to see if their audience and your audience has any similarities. The first way is that you can ask the influencer for their media kit. And if you don't know, a influencer's media kit is really just a document that has an overview of who the influencer is, what their brand is about. They'll talk about any previous partnerships that they've been a part of, any results they were able to garner. And then they'll also have some insights into their brand themselves, which usually does include their audience demographics. So whenever you can definitely ask an influencer for their media kit. From my experience, some influencers will just send it and then they'll just let me know their availability if we do choose to move forward with them for that campaign. Now, I do have to say that sometimes some influencers will not send you their media kit, and it's because they'll have their rate sheet attached to it, and the rate sheet is exactly what it sounds like. It'll have their rates listed out for different deliverables, and some influencers just don't feel comfortable sending that out without knowing that you're actually moving forward with them for that campaign. So you just kind of have to see and test it out and try your luck with it. Now, the second way you can do this is by doing it manually. And what I mean is you're really going to kind of analyze the influencer's content and messaging to see who it's positioned towards. And so when you're looking at their content, you can kind of get a feel for who their target audience is and then relate that to who your audience is and see if there's any similarities between this. And I know that when you're first starting out, it can be really difficult to do this and it can seem like a daunting task, but it does get easier over time. So I thought we'd do like a little role playing session just for a little second, just to see if you're able to do this right now. So let's say that I am a fashion brand and my target audience demographics are millennial women in the workforce, and they value staple pieces that they can use in their closet. Okay, that sounds good to me. And really quickly, I'm not trash talking either of these content creators. I actually love and follow both accounts. So I just wanted to put that out there really quickly. So let's pull up influencer A here and I'll pop her on the screen. So just from her title alone, that should kind of give you an idea of who she's talking to or who this content is made for, right? So it says, and I'm looking at my laptop down here. So it says how I imagine the different types of cheeses would dress. Part 1. There are actually 2 other parts to this if you want to check it out. And just from her aesthetic and how she's dressing, you can kind of see she's very fun, right? Very trendy, eclectic, kind of non-conformist. That's the type of vibe that she gives off to me. Now let's go to influencer B. Now again, I'll pop her profile on the screen, and just from her title, it says 1 piece, 3 dress codes, brown leather pants. So she's going to be styling brown leather pants in 3 different ways. And so just from her aesthetic, it looks like even her brand colors, you know, it's very modern, very reserved, laid back, you know, very practical, I would say. Those are the vibes that I get from her content, right? So now that we have influencer A and influencer B, and if you remember that we are a fashion brand looking for millennial women who work in corporate world and who want staple items in their closet, right? So obviously for me, influencer B would be the one that we go with just from her just from that 1 piece of content. I mean, of course, there are other things we have to look at, but from that piece of content, it looks to me that that's who she's talking to. That's her audience. Influencer A is influencer A from that piece of content alone is not talking to millennial women in the corporate world that want staple item pieces, okay? So of course, I know that was kind of an easy one. They were really different, but I wanted the right influencer to stand out. So of course, sometimes it's not going to be that easy. And if you are deciding to pick between 2 influencers and you have any questions, you can definitely, you know, like DM me or comment and I will help you figure it out. I'll kind of analyze it for you. So yeah, just let me know if you'd like me to do that. But the third way that you can do this is by using an influencer marketing platform. For me, I love influence.co. It's my absolute favorite. And with influence.co, you can put in search criteria for, like I said, like sex, location, age, anything like that, and they'll give you a list of influencers who have an audience that matches that criteria. So those are the ways that you can go about looking at their audience demographics. The next insight that we absolutely need to look at is engagement rate. So I won't spend too much time on engagement rate because from my experience, I've seen most business owners or brands, they know to look at engagement rate, which is great. It's great that brands and business owners are becoming more knowledgeable about the influencer marketing world. And that's really one of the things that I set out to do with this channel, is just to give the brands more information about influencer marketing and how you can use it to really catapult your brand. So I'm so happy a lot of you know engagement rate. But if you do not know, engagement rate is really just the percentage of interactions that an influencer receives on on average on their posts. So this basically just helps you see how engaged their audience is with their content, which is a great thing. You want them to be engaged on their organic posts because it's more likely that they'll be engaged on the same level as the sponsored content. Now, some key things to know about engagement rate is that on average, a good engagement rate is between 2 and 4%. And just keep in mind that as a rule of thumb, nano and micro influencers will have higher engagement rates than macro and mega influencers. And that's really all due to the nano and micro influencers. They have a smaller follower count, which means their engagement can be more centralized and focused to all of their followers versus an influencer who has 1 million followers. It's truly impossible for them to be as engaged with each of their followers. And to calculate engagement rate, I use engagement rate calculators that just do it for me. I love like Flanks and Kicksta. I'll leave links to them in the description box below. Kicksta, I believe, is free, but I use Flanks more than anything else. Flanks is free too, but for the free version, you do get limited search results. So I pay for it because I use it all the time. But those are two really good ways to see the engagement rate. And I do want to say this, you want to take each one with a grain of salt. So it's not uncommon for, let's say Kicksta will tell me that an influencer's engagement rate is 2.5, and then Flanks tells me that their engagement rate is 2.7. That's fine. Usually those calculators have different algorithms that they take into account for, so it's okay to have a small difference like that. But if Kicksta would tell me that their engagement rate is 2.5 and then Flanks would tell me that their engagement rate is 4.7, no, something is off, something is wrong, and I would not take any of those into consideration. But those two are really good. They have never failed me, so I definitely recommend those. So the next insights that you want to look at are reach and expertise, and I coupled these together. So reach is really simple. You just want to make sure that you understand the potential number of people that the influencer can reach, which in turn tells you the potential number of people that the content or campaign that you choose to do will be able to reach. And then let's talk about expertise. So the expertise is just, you want to make sure that the influencer has some type of authority in their niche. And so you may be thinking that only mega and really large influencers can have expertise, but that's not true. Nano and micro influencers have some authority in their niche. That's why they have a dedicated community. So do not count out the nano and micro influencers yet with this one. And the way that you can look to see any expertise that they have is by looking at their previous speaking engagements. So have they been featured on a podcast? Have they been featured in an article or a blog post? Have they been invited to any speaking engagements or like conferences? You want to look at all of that stuff and just kind of see if other brands are looking towards them to speak on a certain niche or a certain topic, then they more than likely have some expertise or authority within that niche, right? And nowadays, from my experience, I've seen that most influencers who have a website or even like a LinkedIn bio, they'll have a link to all their previous speaking engagements or collaborations, because influencers also know that it's important to showcase that they know what they're talking about and that other people have trusted them to speak on this topic. So they will more than likely showcase that. And I would suggest not just looking at how many they've done, but actually clicking on it, actually like listening to that podcast, reading the blog post, watching the snippet from their conference, you know, really listening and analyzing what they had to say about that topic at the time. So the next thing that you want to look at is their content and messaging. Now, content and messaging is just, you want to make sure, is their brand, is their content aligned with your brand, your content, your messaging? And I will tell you this right now, if their brand and their content is not aligned with yours, then the campaign and the partnership will feel forced and unauthentic. It just will. And I think you can attest to this too. I think we've all seen some partnerships or influencers promoting a brand or a product, and you're kind of just looking at it like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why are they talking about this product? That doesn't go with anything they've ever talked about in their lives. So if you've seen that and you felt that way, trust me, your audience will feel the same way. So for example, let's say you're a beauty brand who only offers clean beauty products, like organic, and you've built up this reputation of upholding these standards that you put into your beauty products. and then you end up working with an influencer who does not care about anything being organic. They've never talked about if anything is organic, if they don't care about it, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you partner with somebody like that and they start promoting your products and you're known for this, it looks a little weird. It looks like you didn't put any thought into actually partnering with an influencer who shares the same values that you do. So keep that in mind. This is a really important one. You do not want the campaign to feel thrown together and just forced. So I hope that this helped give you kind of a guideline to use next time you're looking at influencers and deciding if you should work with them. Go through these 5 tips, go through this checklist, make it into a checklist, and just make sure that the influencer is hitting all these marks. And I promise that you'll end up making the right decision for your brand. Okay, so that's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.